They say the sky is the limit. But no one tells you. The sky laughs at the people who look up at it. Two boys did. Every evening, on a cracked rooftop in a crowded neighborhood, Arif and Kabir would sit shoulder to shoulder, staring at airplanes carving white scars across the sunset. They didn't just see planes. They saw escape. They saw power. They saw a future that nobody else around them believed in. And maybe that was the first sign they were different. Or maybe that was the first sign they were delusional. They were 12 when Kabir said, almost casually, "One day I'm going to build something that flies." Not a toy, not a paper plane, something real. Arif didn't laugh. He looked at him, eyes steady, and replied, "Good. And I'll make sure the whole world knows your name." In a world where kids were told to be realistic, these two decided to be ridiculous. Teachers smiled politely at their ambition. Relatives smirked. Neighbors shook their heads. "Dreams are fine," they said, "but survival is better." And slowly, the world began teaching them something dangerous. Hope is embarrassing. 10 years later, the rooftop felt smaller. Kabir had failed his engineering entrance exams. Twice. Arif's YouTube channel sat frozen at 23 subscribers, most of them inactive. The sky looked further away now. Kabir worked at a tiny repair shop fixing other people's broken drones, machines built by people who actually made it. Arif posted ads for companies he didn't care about. Every practical choice chipped away at something inside them. One night, the air felt heavier than usual. Arif finally said it. Maybe they were right about us. That silence afterward was different. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of surrender trying to sneak in. Then Arif spoke. Quiet, controlled, dangerous. Maybe we just weren't delusional enough. The next morning, they did something that terrified them. They quit. No savings plan. No investors. No guarantees. Just belief. The kind of belief that makes people uncomfortable. Kabir turned his garage into a workshop. Tools scattered. Wires hanging. Blueprints taped to peeling walls. They began building a delivery drone. It failed. It crashed. It sparked. Once it literally caught fire. And in the middle of smoke and melted plastic, they laughed. Not because it was funny, but because failure meant they were moving. While everyone else was playing safe, they were playing for legacy. Arif started documenting everything online. Not polished success, but raw struggle. Views barely moved. Money ran out. Doubt grew louder. But something inside them grew louder too. An audacity that whispered, "You are not average. Act like it." 6 months in, they were exhausted. One more failure could have ended it. That's when Kabir said the most insane thing yet. "Let's email the biggest logistics company in the country." Arif stared at him. "We don't even have a finished product." Kabir's voice didn't shake. "They don't know that yet." The subject line read, "Your future delivery partner. No credentials. No funding. No proof. Just conviction." They hit send. And for a week, nothing. Doubt crept in again. Bills piled up. Family pressure intensified. Enough fantasy, they were told. Then one afternoon, a reply. Not from the CEO, but from someone curious. "Send what you've built." Their hands trembled. Not from fear of rejection, but from the weight of possibility. They sent everything, even the crashes. Especially the crashes. Because this wasn't a polished lie. It was an audacious truth. They were invited to pitch. 5 minutes. In a room filled with suits. Degrees framed on walls. People who looked important. Kabir spoke first. Not like a desperate kid begging for approval, but like a founder discussing expansion. Arif followed. Not like a YouTuber with 23 subscribers, but like a storyteller announcing the next revolution. They didn't shrink. They didn't apologize for their lack of credentials. They spoke as if success was already theirs. Because in their minds, they didn't walk out with $1 million deal, but they walked out with a pilot project, a test zone, a single opportunity, small to the world, massive to them, because this wasn't luck. It was proof that reality bends just slightly when you refuse to bow to it. They worked like obsession was oxygen. No weekends, no balance, no backup plan. The drones improved. Crashes became rare. Deliveries became smooth. 3 months later, the pilot exceeded expectations. News outlets picked up the story. Investors called. The same people who once laughed now said, "We always knew." But the truth? No one knew, except 2 boys on a rooftop who once stared at the sky and decided it belonged to them. Years later, they stood on that same rooftop. Older, scarred, stronger. A drone they built flew overhead. Steady, powerful, undeniable. Kabir's eyes glistened and both of them said, "We did it." Kabir smiled softly. "No," he said. "We refused not to." Listen carefully. Every person who ever changed their life looked delusional at first. Every dream worth chasing looks impossible at the beginning. Delusion is dangerous if it's empty, but when it's backed by action, it becomes unstoppable belief. Audacity is uncomfortable. It makes people roll their eyes. It makes you look foolish until it works. And when it works, they call it vision. So be delusional. Be audacious. Believe so deeply in your future that reality feels pressured to catch up, because sometimes the only difference between a failure and a legend is the courage to look crazy for just a little longer. Be crazy enough to believe. Be bold enough to act.